Hello, everyone, and welcome to Midlife, the search for meaning in the middle. I'm your host, Lisa Steadman, and today we're joined by Jonathon Aslay. Now, Jonathon is one of America's leading midlife self-love life coaches and has expanded, and I'm so curious to talk about this, into a deeper, essential philosophy of what it truly means to love. Part of this, part of being in midlife is there's always grief. And I was really saddened when I saw this online and curious to talk to Jonathon about this today too. After losing his 19-year-old son Connor in 2018, Jonathon's grief led him on a soul-searching inner journey. And today he's on a mission to encourage both men and women to fully love themselves with his book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? Which is packed with fun, engaging spiritual and personal growth practices. Jonathon, welcome.
I'm so excited to hang out with you today.
I'm thrilled. I mean, first, thank you for being here. We have
Yeah,
known each other for over 20 years and maybe
yeah,
met a couple times in person. I mean, I know there
yeah,
was a pandemic in those years, but
yeah,
but I just have to tell you, it was really witnessing you move through the grief of losing your son. That was right around the time I lost my mom, but losing a parent, you're kind of expected that's going to happen at some point.
yeah,
Losing a
yeah,
child is unexpected and tragic. Um,
yeah,
and at least the pieces and the parts you shared visibly and vocally online, that gave me such a deep and profound appreciation for your vulnerability and your heart and the journey that you went on. Um, I'm sorry for your loss. That's, in these moments, it's like, what do you say? Because that doesn't even begin to cover it. But I'm
yeah,
also thankful for what you seemingly have gained in the journey of grief. And we'll get
yeah,
into that in a minute. But I want to start. I love this idea of a midlife self love and love mastery coach. So,
yeah.
how did you find this work and this niche, and what do you love about it?
Yeah, so, well, thank you so much earlier, what you shared. I really appreciate that. And even
Yeah.
having the opportunity to share my perceptions and my experiences. It's interesting. So, for years I've touted myself as a dating and relationship coach and specializing in midlife, which I say midlife is after baby making years and before retirement. So I
Love that
most of my audience,
distinction.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, I say most of my audience is between 42, 69. And while that may not be midlife, that may be the third, like the last third of your life for some people. I think my father lived to be 99, so I consider that midlife.
Amazing. That
Um,
is midlife.
and I specialized in for dating and relationships because there was particularly when I began this work almost 20 years ago, the divorce population for the first time is out in the dating marketplace, and there was this thing called the internet, online dating. I mean, internet had been around for a little bit, but and I'm talking about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And just navigating the dating environment pre-internet, was certainly different. So I wanted to help people navigate the internet dating process, online dating process, that sort of thing. And then over the years, it's morphed into personal development, self help, spiritual work, and even therapy, at least the encouragement of that. Because, there's a phrase, how can you love another if you don't love yourself? Now,
So true.
I want to be clear though. Loving yourself is an ongoing process, and we never get to the destination until
It is
maybe
not a one,
seven.
it's not a, yeah, it's not one way destination. It is back and
Yeah,
forth.
yeah, exactly. So, when you say that you have to love yourself before, it's more that you are in the process doing
Yes.
the healing work, whether it's healing childhood wounds, adult traumas, that sort of thing. And there's more to it, which I can share in a moment. It's that will amplify your opportunity for attracting a life partner that's hopefully, you know, aligned with who you are and what you want. So that's
And
how it's
doing the
morphed
same
over the
kind
years
of
to that.
Yeah, and doing the same kind of self-work, right?
Yeah.
Like attracts like, and I found when I was not practicing self-love that I attracted a lot of men who were not practicing self-love or really practicing love towards me either. Um, and it was really, I remember the moment I shifted and I started doing this practice where every day I would wake up and I would say love is, and I would redefine it because I thought love was challenging and hard and frustrating and I had to chase and be
Yeah.
skinnier or whatever. Um, and when I started to redefine like love is here and love wants me too, and love is available and love sees me and gets me and supports me just like I support that, like then that's what changed for me. And so I really appreciate that you are creating a container for, because anyone can get an online date, you just go on an app. But
Yeah.
to
Yeah. Yeah.
find a meaningful relationship, that's where the work begins.
Well, sadly, we human beings have almost adopted an unconscious behavior is I need you to love me so I can feel good about myself.
Mm.
Like we are suckling on the nipple practically of that need for many people rather than looking at from love from both a place within us giving love to ourselves and also coming from a place of giving, not
Yes, this
receiving.
is what I have to give.
And sadly, particularly here in the United States, it's different in other parts of the world, but there's a level of unconscious superficiality when it comes to love, like meeting certain extreme criteria. For women, the man has to be 6 foot tall, have six figures in their
Five blue
bank account,
eyes.
and a six pack abs. Men, you've got 60-year-old men that want to date 20-year-old women thinking, like, oh, I want to be with someone younger. And this is the delusion many humans live with.
Yes.
So my job is to knock some sense into people. It's hard to look in the mirror and go, you know, maybe I've got to work on myself before I want to
Ooh.
attract this amazing partner. And Lisa, I'll tell you what, a significant percentage of the population is rather, they're gaslighting themselves in
No.
believing that they're all whole and all this kind of stuff. They're
Yes.
either acting entitled or they act like, and for sadly a lot of people like doormats, and I don't mean that to insult anyone, but their self-esteem is so low that they don't believe they deserve anything of value. So
Mm.
self-love is reeling in those people that are overinflated and inflating those that
Pumping
are
up.
underinflated.
Yeah. It's so true. I love how you articulated that because I made a short film this summer and it was really about this topic of like, well, it was about people who choose AI companionship over human companionship. But
Yeah.
part of the journey of the film is that two humans end up falling in love who had chosen AI companionship because what they thought they wanted was perfection and a yes person, but what they really wanted was flaws and vulnerability and the things that you can't get from a yes AI
Yeah.
bot that looks like a human. And it's such an interesting world to explore and to guide people on because I feel like more and more in our lives, ChatGPT is a yes man. So when you talk to ChatGPT, it tells you how great you are. When you're on social media, if you don't
Yeah.
like something, you can click away. Apps, you can just swipe. So learning how to see a human for the beauty in the flaws, to be vulnerable, to risk loss, to be okay with it not looking perfect. I
Yeah. Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I love the work you're doing and I think it's so necessary because I think we're just become I fear that we're becoming increasingly um distant to the idea that vulnerability is a beautiful thing. And I just I've been with my husband for 20 years, and
Yeah.
if he were a yes man, oh my God, I would be a nightmare to deal with. But he pushes me to be better every day and challenges me. And I'm grateful for that. Did I ask for that? No, but yes, I guess I did. Because here
Yeah.
I am 20 years later going, thank God, like I like myself so much better now.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting. I was watching a little Instagram reel of a couple in New York, and there's this, I guess there's this channel or page that, interviews couples walking
Okay.
down the street. And she says, "What do you love about your guy?" And she goes, or "What do you love about your husband?" She goes, "You know what? He's such a guy's guy." And the way she said it was like, and he was kind of, it was just that smile on her face, and whatever that means to her, guy
Yeah.
is irrelevant. But it was like a level of absolute acceptance and appreciation. And what I believe, what many couples suffer from is either, have they don't fully accept their partner. They accept maybe
Right.
87%, but the 13% that they don't like, they focus on the 13% that they don't like
And do they
instead
try
of
and
going,
change it?
yeah,
Because
and they're trying to change it, that sort of thing, instead of being
yeah.
an acceptance and appreciate. You see, the way the 13% that's missing, appreciation fills that gap about being in
Mm.
appreciation of the 87%. And look at, I'm not here to, say that bad behavior in that 13%, there's bad behavior, abusive behavior. No, I'm not talking about accepting that. I'm talking about
Right.
personality quirks, slight
Yeah.
differences between the,
Imperfections.
yeah, well,
Difference of
you know,
opinion.
yeah, like, is it forks up or forks down in the dishwasher kind of thing?
Exact. Oh my God. Don't get me
Um,
started on the dishwasher. I am a Tetris ninja with the dishwasher and I shoo my husband away because I'm like, no, 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 no. I can pack this tighter. I'm so, and he's the cook, so it's perfect. But like every once in a while, I'll see him bringing a dish. I'm like, no, 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 I got it. So
yeah.
that's my imperfection showing, but it's quirky. You mentioned the doormat and the overinflated entitlement, but I'm also curious if there's other signs of a lack of self-love that maybe presents itself in midlife. I have no idea, but I'm curious.
So this is a great question, and particularly if we're looking at it from romantic relationship lens
Hmm.
for a moment. The average person today, if they're entering into midlife, 75% of singles in the dating marketplace are most likely divorced if they're over 45 years
Okay.
old. And so most everybody has had one, if not two, three, four, or five relationships that lasted 3 months or longer. And I just want to, establish, if you've invested up to 3 months and been physically intimate with someone, we may not think of that as a significant relationship, but I think that's a significant experience. Okay.
Absolutely.
And what happens is oftentimes people have had endings of a relationship that either didn't go their own way, it was
Yeah.
toxic, it was uncomfortable, whatever it is. And from that vantage point, if they're harboring pain from their past relationship, if they're harboring any fear in the connection of someone new, or worse, they are in a state of fantasy of what a
Ooh.
relationship looks like.
Oh,
Okay,
say
so
more about that.
I want to just give you a little graph, and I'm going to use my hands. But if your fear, your past hurts, or your fantasy exceed your desire, capacity, and vision for a relationship, you're going to be problematic in a relationship. And the fantasy piece is coming back to that entitled person, like, I have this fantasy of what this person should look like even before I meet them, and I will
Right.
only accept people that fit this list. Okay, that's the
Right.
fantasy, the list. And not to suggest that things on the list aren't important, but what's more important on the list is what you want to feel, and not the details of, it's not the details of height, hair, all that
Yes.
stuff. That's the details.
The
But what you want to
feeling, I love
feel
it. Yes.
is more
It's how
important.
they make you feel. How do you want to
Yeah.
feel when you're with them?
Yeah.
The feeling tone is everything.
Yeah.
Whew.
So that's where fantasy is. We sadly, for many people, most men fantasize about being with a young, attractive woman. That's their fantasy. Women have that, you've seen it. They have a laundry list of what the fantasy is, and that can bite them in the butt.
Drives this car,
So,
makes this money, has this kind of
yeah,
house, looks like this, is this tall, blue eyed,
yeah.
all the things. Yeah.
But even when you get granular sometimes, and you're absolutely right, is that there's this almost we in the United States have a we pretend like we don't want perfectionism. We pretend we don't. But in some ways the subconscious sabotages, and I know that happened in my relationship. I mean,
Sure.
and I know you want to talk about this a little bit later in the conversation, but we almost sabotaged it based on our ego that got in the way on our first date. And again, I can give you more details about that. And that's where really self-love is a practice of not only being the experience of your life, in other words, experiencing life, but also pulling back and being the witness to your life and looking
Yes.
at your life from an objective point of view.
Oh, I love the way you articulate things, Jonathan. This is amazing. So, how does self-love impact the journey of finding a loving partner in midlife? So for example, let's use you and your lady, and we were going to talk about her later, but I want to talk about this because I did the same thing, and I was not midlife when I met my husband. I was early 30s, but um, in my example, he, by all accounts, was a nice guy, and I had decided that I wanted a nice guy. But
Yeah.
what did I do when I met this nice guy? I flaked on a plan with him that we
Okay.
had tentatively made. What I love
Yeah.
about this nice guy is when he called and said, "Hey, are we still doing this thing?" And I said, "Oh, I went to go visit my dad." He said, "Well, I'm only going to ask you out one more time, so it's up to you if you want to go out with me." And I was like,
Yeah.
this would be on me, just like shame on me if I screw this up, because what I asked for has presented itself and now
Yeah.
I might be blowing it. So
Ah.
I course corrected and I checked my ego and I was like, that was really rude. I'm so sorry. Yes, let's make a plan and let's go out. So I want to hear
Yeah.
your version of this.
So, well, coming back to self-love, I mean, I just want to quickly for everyone, because the word self-love can turn some people off. So I
Yeah,
want you to think of self-love in the context of um, self-reliance, self-esteem, self-confidence, self-discipline, and look at it from a self-empowerment point of view. And it's just wrapped in a heart that says love, okay?
yeah. And so
And
for me, there's self-acceptance and also self-knowing, like knowing who you are well enough to know what you're capable of evolving into and what you're not
sure.
willing to change.
Yeah, that falls under the category of what I call know thyself. And that means
Okay.
knowing your fears, your insecurities, your negative patterns, your limiting beliefs, your judgments for others, how your actions affect other human beings. Like having that kind of ninja self-awareness is rather uncommon. And yet most people believe that they do. Okay.
Yeah.
The other facet of self-love is to recognize that emotionally speaking, we all have a little 6-year-old inside of us that
Hmm.
is kind of scared of the world. The world is a scary, like if you put a 6-year-old in the street in New York, by themselves,
Forget
and
it.
to navigate things, it's going to be scary. So
Yeah.
we all have so self-love is knowing that we all have a little emotional 6-year-old inside of us. And we, the adult, have to take really good care of that little 6-year-old inside of us. That's how I view self-love.
I love that.
Now, this is where life gets tricky, especially in romantic relationships,
Okay.
because particularly here in the United States and in other parts of the world where there's arranged marriages and that sort of thing, we operate from the belief that chemistry equals relationship success.
Mm.
And dating is more, and by the way, dating up until about 60 years ago was based on you had 3 people to choose from your high
Right.
school kind of thing,
Right.
or 30
Your
people kind of thing.
neighborhood, your
Yeah.
church. Yeah.
Now we have with our smartphones, we have access to about 1 billion people that we'll never meet anyway.
And it
But
makes us stupid, but that's okay.
yeah, so we've adopted this belief that attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection is the pathway to relationship success. In other words, it's all based, and that's the way we date. And listen, like a broken clock, it works twice a day. For everyone else, genuine compatibility equals relationship success. But
Yeah.
more importantly, and I just shot a video on this, it's Jonathon Aslay's three golden keys to relationship success. And I would venture to say, if I can run it by you, I bet your
Yeah.
relationship has all three of these things.
Okay.
One, massive friendship. Now,
Yes. A
okay, now
must.
I said massive friendship.
Massive.
Okay, there's a big difference between, yeah, a friend,
I
and
kind of like
nowadays,
you.
yeah, I mean, there are people that I have a Facebook page with, 800 friends, whom half of them I haven't met anyway. But massive friendship, that's number one.
Yes.
Number two, amazing romance. Now,
Ooh.
now I say amazing romance. I mean, it's like, and I don't mean over the top flowers on Valentine's Day, that
Okay,
sort
good,
of
because
thing.
we're not those people.
Yeah, there's an episode of Nobody Wants This where Noah buys a nightstand for Joanne. This is in the most recent, in the second season, first episode, and she's like, that was romantic to her. The bubble bath isn't romantic. Doing that,
Right.
but
It depends
romance
on what
also
how you
means,
define it.
yeah, and I say amazing romance. I'm also talking about a good sex life too. Like, I mean, sex is the reason why we do romantic relationships. Otherwise, you might just be with friends.
Yeah.
Um, and having a really cultivated sex life. And I'm talking about if you want that juicy, delicious, healthy, happy relationship. If you want a
Yes.
transactional relationship, that's a whole different
Yeah.
conversation. That's not what I'm
Well,
about.
and what's interesting about a healthy sex life is that it evolves in midlife because hormones are changing, desire is changing, and so it's interesting whether it's new love or long-term love to see how that evolves at this age and stage,
Sure.
and learning how to communicate about that is like for respect of privacy, I won't share the conversation I had with my husband recently, but I was like, whoa, we're having this conversation? Okay, let's have this conversation. And it was
Yeah.
great, but I never expected to be there, and it was fascinating. So I love what you're saying. So, okay, so an amazing
The
sex
third
life.
one. Okay, and this actually, what you just said leans into the third one.
Okay.
And I call it grounded partnership with
Ooh,
skills. Okay, grounded partnership with skills. And what I mean to say is, you've agreed, hey, we're teammates with one another. We're a team. We're on the same team. It's a two-person team, excuse me. It's a two-person team. We're on the same team. But also important, we come with the skills of good communication skills, the skills of regulating our emotions when things get difficult,
that's a
not
good one.
fighting, I'll call it fighting fair, but and having empathy with your partner and being transparent and vulnerable, as you said before. So having these skills in a grounded partnership. And I
Mm,
believe when you have all three of those things, massive friendship, awesome, or amazing
romance.
romance,
Yeah.
and grounded partnership, that's what I'm encouraging in that container of self love. In other words, self love is like, look, I've got I've got a lot. I need to love myself. I have a lot of love to give to someone else. I want to be with someone who loves themselves and has a lot of love to give. And we're in it together to win, not from a place of expectation, but from a
Yes.
place of a heart-centered giving.
This is so good. And the two nuggets that are really popping for me right now, because they are core to what I believe makes my marriage work is, and what I've seen work for other people, empathy and fairness. Because
Mm,
your partner's not always going to do what you want to do. They're going to make decisions you may not like. They might quit their job. They might, whatever it is. And learning how to have empathy in those moments and then talk about it, and if you fight fair. If you disagree fair. If you like, whatever your version of that is or your language is for that, being
yeah.
fair about that, I will say that is the reason this has been the long-term relationship in the marriage for me, is because I knew we would always be fair with each other, and that was
Yeah.
really important to me.
Well, unfortunately, and again, I only relate to United States because I don't know what it's like living other parts of the
Yeah.
world. You know, we've adopted, sadly, a very self-centric way of being. Social media has amplified that. And it's very myopic and unconscious. I don't think I believe most people are good people. In fact, I typically coach women and I say, look, most men are good guys, they're just bad daters. It doesn't make them bad guys.
It's a good
Um,
distinction.
and so I believe in everyone's heart and their core, they're good
Yes.
people. But at the same time, we've had so much programming. I mean, so much programming. And sadly, even the younger generation, more so though, I'm a tail end baby boomer. I know you're a Gen Xer. We were raised with a lot of scripts that even that this, I mean, a far less than today's younger person out in the dating marketplace. So, and coming to a place of really working on this self-love piece is my mission to encourage this because it feels better to be in a place of empowerment, but more importantly,
Yes.
you become a magnetic attractor for the relationship that you want.
Yes,
And
and you become a magnetic attractor for more than just romantic partnership. You become a magnetic attractor for opportunities, for
yeah,
jobs, for friends who are vibing at your level. The thing I used to say when I was doing breakup coaching, was when I wrote my breakup books, was to be honest, I don't care when you meet your next man. What I care about is that you fall in love with you in your life so that when the next person shows up, you get to decide if they're right for you or not. Like it really is that self-love and self-acceptance and empowered space of choice versus lack and I hope they choose me without being discerning about it.
you
I'm
you
so
said something
happy that
about
you're doing the
break.
work you're doing.
Well, and I want to piggyback really quickly because I know you have
Yeah.
another question just around the corner, but for everyone listening, because you mentioned breakup. When I said earlier the average person has had 3, 4, 5 significant relationships, we can look at it from a victim consciousness, or we can look at those past relationships from a victor consciousness. And
Yes.
what a real quick way to tell somebody is not ready for a relationship is just listen to them talk about their past relationship. That gives you all kinds of clues as their capacity. Remember, I said their fears and their past hurts and even their
Yes. And the
vanity, if you will, or
stories.
fantasy. It
We
really
tell
speaks
ourselves a lot of
volumes.
stories about
Yeah.
what's possible, about how we were done wrong. And if we don't take accountability for our own actions, then we never learn.
No.
Yeah, no, I love this. So I want to segue, and I'm loving this conversation, Jonathan. I could talk to you all day, number one. And number two, I can see why you do the work you do. The way you articulate it makes so much sense, and I feel your heart and your passion for it. So thank you for being called to this work and being the person this was downloaded into so you can go out and do this work. I mean, I really do think our gifts find us, and I'm glad your gifts found you. That's amazing. So segueing, grief is a natural part of the midlife experience. Most often, grief can look like losing a parent or going through a divorce or losing a spouse. But no one's ever prepared to lose a child. And you have been very visible online anyway about sharing your own journey of losing your son. And I'm wondering what you feel comfortable sharing today about that journey and where you've gotten to with that.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. And I'll make this really brief, not because I can do a 5 hour segment. So just so you know,
Yeah.
but I want to make this part brief. What I learned in the experience of losing my son, and it was to an accident 7 years ago, is the impermanence of life. That things can change at a moment. It could be a job change, as you mentioned before. It could be
Yeah.
the ending of a relationship. It could be the ending of a family member. And we oftentimes think of our parents a little bit differently because if a parent lived a full life, they were in their 80s plus, you're like, okay, that's the natural order of
Yeah.
things. And certainly if we lost a loved one that's our own age or a spouse or that sort of thing, that can be emotionally devastating because in some ways your spouse is your anchor in life.
Mm,
But the challenge with a child is it goes against the natural order of things. And the way I began observing grief, well, first, and I remember giving his eulogy, I looked at everybody at the church and I said, look, we can grieve with suffering or we can grieve with love.
ooh,
I said that on the fly, by the way. I had no idea I was going to turn into doing podcasts for the next
wow.
year talking about grieving with love. And it was recognizing that his journey, short-lived, 19 years, more than a lot, less than others.
Right.
He came with so many gifts in my life and his mother's life and his brother's life and the people, his circle of friends. And I said, look, I want to grieve with love. That means accepting it, recognizing that, going through, the evolution of anger, depression, bargaining, all
Sure.
those things, but really coming to a place of acceptance. A little bit of a Buddhist philosophy for me, trying not to be overly attached, um, and and just recognizing that I know if he were here talking to me right now, whispering, he'd say, "Live your best life, Dad."
Yes.
And that's what grieving with love is, knowing that our loved ones want the best for us. We
Me
miss them
too.
deeply, but they want the best for us. So, and it's the same, and I've taken this into my work. I actually, after when he passed, I was a little bit in limbo and I thought, well, I've been blogging about self love. Let's turn it into a book. So I eventually, his passing motivated me to finish my book called What the Heck is Self
Oh,
Love Anyway? Yeah,
congrats.
right behind me. And by the way, I just want to share with everybody. I mean, you can get it on Amazon, but it's very simplistic. It is very common sense. It's easy bites. It takes 5 minutes, 4 minutes to read a chapter. It's really easy bites to take in. It's not this deep like the Untethered Soul or anything like that.
Right,
Um,
right.
but it's designed to go, okay, I want to be empowered. I want to know who I am. I want to start living life from a more empowered point of view. And that's what the book is about. It's about personal development, self-help, spiritual work. And I'm always a big fan for therapy as well. Work on
Yes.
oneself in those modalities, and you're going to find that life's a bit happier.
Yes. That's it's I first of all, the fact that that came out of you at the when you were delivering a eulogy and it came so innately to you just says so much about who you are and the way you live and living and accepting loss. I remember at my mother's funeral, I think I said something along the lines of, well, I'm sorry for the loss, I'm grateful for the love.
Yeah.
Because it was both. And grief is such, nobody can adequately prepare you for the grief journey because it shows up. I used to say it was like a dominatrix because it would make you get on all fours and like beg for your life in the moment that was least appropriate. It would just show up randomly when you're
That
in the middle
visual
of
just got planted.
in the middle of something awesome and suddenly there would be a wave and it would just knock you down.
Yeah.
Um, and so I appreciate even just this bite of what you've shared about that journey. And I'm so happy to see you with a smile on your face and celebrating his life and his legacy the way that you do,
Yeah.
and how you've turned some of that journey. Because I do believe, if it's not happening to us, it's happening for us. So you've
Yeah.
used the pain of that as well as the joy and the beauty to mine for your work,
Yeah.
and
Thank
to
you.
learn life lessons too.
Hey,
And
look, thank you. And I just
yeah,
want to say something, Lisa, for everyone listening, oops, I didn't realize my phone was still on. Lisa's painting a picture of this totally evolved guy. Let me be clear to everyone listening. I was raised very myopic, very selfish, very self-centric, a prick. I mean, I did a lot of drugs and alcohol. I mean, I came from being in the depths of despair
yeah,
20 plus years ago. And it wasn't until I adopted a practice of personal development, self help, spiritual work, and therapy that I've gotten to. And for the record, everyone listening or watching, I am scratching the ant's belly. Okay. I
wait,
would
what does
still love
that
to be.
mean?
Well, I'd love to be in a room with like Wayne Dyer or Neil Donald Walsh. I mean, I could list off a bunch of spiritual gurus who I have a great deal of respect, and
Yeah.
I'm like I'm saying I'm scratching the ant's belly to them, you know.
Got it. Got it. So this is what I love about life is none of us I mean, yeah, I was a raging alcoholic all through college. Like none of us I think most of us did not, start off where we've ended up, and that's what's great about life because the journey is self-discovery.
Yeah.
And learning how to become the most authentic version of yourself, forgiving the parts that at least for me, I judged for so many years and had stories about why that made me unlovable or whatever it was. So yes, it's easy to see people in midlife having this conversation and feeling very evolved, but yes, it is important to say this hasn't always been the case. So I
No.
appreciate that you're
Yeah.
bringing words to that. And I want to segue now into, you definitely walk your talk, sir. Recently, a new love has entered your life. And
Yeah.
just from what I've seen you write about the experience of love at this age and stage, I
Yeah.
feel what it means to you. And I'd love for you to share first how you two met, and
Okay.
then let's dig into that.
Okay. Well, this is going to take a few minutes to give you that
Yeah,
backstory.
do
So,
it.
and just to give everyone a little bit of context, I'd been married, in my 20s, went through a divorce, had a significant relationship for 6 years. That didn't work out. Had another relationship, pretty significant. We lived together, lasted a year and a half. That didn't work out. And that actually kind of broke my heart a bit because that wasn't my choice. But to put that in context, like I was sharing before, I've had several significant relationships. And when that relationship ended, I said, okay, let me really examine this relationship and ask myself, what positive things about myself did I learn in this relationship? How have I healed my childhood from this relationship or adult experiences? What was good about the relationship? What was not good? And what am I most grateful for? And I
Mm,
wanted to emphasize this because when I put myself back out in the dating marketplace, I was more clear on what I wanted. And
okay.
most importantly, I wanted someone who had a connection with the divine, someone who is personal growth oriented, someone who has a curious mindset, and this is really important, and somebody that is into me and we have passion and all that kind of stuff. So just I want to lay down a few of the must-haves, kind
I
of thing.
like the clarity. Yes.
So I went on maybe a half a dozen dates in a 2 year period before I met my beloved. And but to before we physically met, we had connected on Bumble. Okay, I want to give you the dating apps. First, we connected on Bumble about 8 months before we physically met, or 10 months
Okay.
before we physically met, excuse me. Had a brief exchange, didn't go anywhere. Then a few months later, it was Match.com. We saw each other, we said hi, brief exchange, didn't go anywhere. Fast forward 6 months later, on Hinge, she wrote me a message. We had an exchange. I go, "Do you remember me?" She goes, "I vaguely remember you," which I got kind of pissed. And, and then we had an exchange and something that she said. So we were having a brief text message exchange through the app, and something she said that sparked me to want to make a phone call now that it's been 3 times. She said, we were talking about, she said, people who are not curious lack imagination.
Ooh,
And I thought, wow, that was some, by the way, I think I'm butchering it, but it's something like that, she
yes.
said.
I
And
love the feeling of that. Yes.
yeah, and so I'm like, I have to talk to her. So we got on the phone and we ended up talking for 3 hours. And what was interesting, do you know Rano and Sierra?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it turned out, by the way, it turned out my sweetheart was friends with people I know.
Oh,
She
I
was
love
friends with my
that.
ex-girlfriend. She was friends with so many people in my community. We have crossed paths, but we didn't know it.
Oh my God.
And we learned about it in this phone call. So we're like, okay, let's get together. And we arranged for a coffee date. Now, it wasn't Starbucks. It was at a nice hotel overlooking Marina Del Rey on a Sunday morning. And we ended up having coffee and breakfast and sat out. And we had a 5 hour date, if you will. Well, I call them meetings. I call the first time you meet someone a meeting, the second time you meet them as a follow-up meeting, and if you see them a third time, that's the official date. Okay.
I think that's
So,
fair. That's a great way
okay.
to describe it.
So what happened is we really got along well. We talked, but there wasn't. I'm going to use the word chemistry, but we weren't each other's type.
Mhm.
Okay. Now our type is that fantasy of what we had. Coming back to the
Right.
fantasy, she didn't fit my fantasy, but I didn't fit her fantasy either. And so we end up talking on the phone 2 days later, and she's like, "Well, what do you think, Jonathan?" I said, "I got to tell you, I'm neutral." And she goes, "I'm neutral too." And we end up talking for 5 hours about why
About
the hell we're both
neutrality.
neutral. Like we're in like neutrality, and we're like, we check this box, we check this box, and we were
Wow.
talking. And then the following day, I messaged her and I was like, "Hey, do you want to talk?" And we ended up talking. I mean, for the next 10 days, we spent 2, 3, 4, even 5 hours on any given day getting to know each other
Ah,
without expectation,
yes.
without walls, fully transparent, vulnerable, authentic. We shared things we wouldn't say to someone that we were dating. We were like becoming each other's best friend, just because
I love
we
it.
we had some things in common, and then we
Yeah.
just
And
kept
you
going,
had community
oh,
in common, so there was familiarity.
yeah. And we talked about our marriages, we talked about our past relationships, and we talked about it like I'm talking to my best friend. And then I woke up um, Thursday morning, or it was 10 days later, and I said, God, I really like her, like a lot. Like, I'm like, and like so much for that, I stepped into the masculine and I said, "Can we get together?" Oh, let me rewind. She said, "Do you want to get together for a drink?" And I said, "I can't on Wednesday." So then on Thursday, the following day, I said, I kind of made that move. Let's meet.
Okay.
And I wanted it from a romantic vantage point.
Yes.
So I end up going to her house. And mind you, we've accumulated 40 hours of telephone calls. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking. Um, and I came over to her house. We were going to go out for a drink. I walked in and I felt the vibe between us. And I just leaned in and kissed her. And all of a sudden, the sparks started to fly. And
Wow.
and and we were then
Love
sitting on
this.
the couch. We were sitting on the couch just talking. We talked for 5 hours. I turned to her and I said, "Don't take this the wrong way, but I freaking love you." Like, not I'm in love with you, but it's like
Yeah.
saying, "I really, really, really like you." But I
Yes.
said it in kind of a, I freaking love you. Like
Yeah.
we like each other's being, who we are as beings.
Yes.
And she goes, "God, I feel the same way." So a week later, we had an official date. And it was very romantic, nice restaurant, that sort of thing. And then, we had
Oh, you
another date. And
froze.
then once we had physical intimacy, I mean, and that was off the charts, the relationship started to take off. And
This
why I
is so
shared earlier those
beautiful.
three, and what we have that massive friendship. We have amazing romance, but more importantly, we're both on the same page. We want partnership. We have good communication skills. It's very grounded. And at the time we're recording this, I'm 5 months in, but we both know we want to go till our last breath together. We're very clear. We're intent. One of the key things is we're intentional about the getting to know each other
Yes.
process. We accept each other for who we are. We appreciate what's missing. We focus on the 87% that's great, and we are appreciative of that to make the 13% being like that's where you give grace. We give a lot of attention to one another, a lot of affection to one another, and I believe that's the recipe. All these little nuggets that I've shared in this conversation
Yeah.
to potential relationship success. Now, some people will, and you might say to me, Jonathan, you're in the honeymoon.
No,
There's
I'm feeling this for you.
Yeah, well, why I wanted to say this is our relationship isn't built on dopamine. It's built on
Right.
serotonin. It's built on serotonin.
Say
It's a
more about
very,
that.
okay. Dopamine is the rush that you get when you do crack cocaine. It's the rush when you have lust for someone or limerence for someone. It's built, that's what honeymoon is oftentimes built on, a dopamine rush.
Okay.
Very few couples experience serotonin. Serotonin is how you feel about your best friend. Serotonin is how you feel about your children. Serotonin is how you feel about a play that moved you, you know? It's not, it's coming from a deep heart-centered space of the chemicals instead of the rush place that we get temporarily. It's built through the calm, it's built through trust, it's built through presence. That is so important. It's built through active listening. It's built by, wanting to fight fair instead of being right. It's not built from ego. That's what serotonin love feels like.
That is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of this. I feel like I really feel this mirrors my experience of getting to know my husband in the beginning because I
Yeah.
went away for a month after 3 dates and I was like, I'm either never going to see him again or we're going to have to communicate while I'm gone. And we did.
Yeah.
It was amazing. We played 20 questions. I pitched we were going to play 20 questions, but you could only ask questions you were willing to answer. And by the time I
Yeah.
got back, I moved in with him. Like it was just like
Yay!
you're my person, you know? So I love this. Thank you for sharing this. And I feel like you've given us like this blueprint of what's possible and a blueprint of how to show up. Like just I've learned so much in this conversation with you. So thank you for that. And I love your love. It feels and sounds and is so beautiful.
Can I add something, Lisa? Do we have time?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, for everyone listening, I want to say something because you just said what's possible. So, and what I'm about to share, I'm very guilty of. In the dating marketplace, it can feel very demoralizing. You can feel defeated. You can feel frustrated. I get it. And sadly, social media fuels this experience through the reels that are talking about how bad dating is, how all the pain, the suffering, the ghosting, the narcissism, all that stuff. And what happens is people are being fueled. The wolf that they're being fed is all the negativity. And the reason why crossed your vortex the other day was because I'm talking about what's possible. And let me just say this, you know, an amazing relationship is absolutely possible, but you're going to have to work for it. This isn't gifted to you. This whole narrative that you deserve something just because, you breathe is the fantasy or the delusion we live in. If you
Yeah.
I worked really fucking hard, excuse my French there, to be in a place where I can show up this way. And by the way, I'm here to say whether you're a man or woman, it's going to take a lot of work to get to in a place to be in a space where you can actually appreciate an awesome relationship. And that's what I do in my private coaching, is to help people navigate this, and most importantly learning discernment, because there's a lot of people out there that don't know what they're doing. And if it's like
Discernment is
you
key. Thank you for saying that. Discernment, and it is work. Relationships, happy, healthy relationships like the ones that Jonathan has described in terms of like that fairness and the empathy and the great sex and the romance and all the things, that doesn't happen from autopilot. That happens from conscious efforts.
you got to do it internally. That's where the
Yes,
work is.
and
Internal.
vulnerability, being open and being vulnerable and sharing deeply even when it's hard and all the things. So if this conversation, for anyone who's watching and listening and hearing this and it's resonating, please connect with Jonathan, because I think this is the most important work you can do in your life. Because again, yes, if you want love, I want you to find love. And if it takes a minute to find love, the rest of your life journey is going to be so much sweeter because of the work you do in this space.
Aw, well, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I love this. So, final question for you from your personal experience. What is one thing that is unexpected, surprising, or delightful for you in midlife that you didn't expect?
Oh God, I mean, I, I could spend an entire
I
podcast just
know.
going through all of that. It's interesting. I'm going to come back to my beloved. It's funny, and this is going to take me a minute to share because I just had this realization. Even before I met her, that fantasy piece was still in my vortex,
Okay.
that, and it's evident by the fact that, we weren't each other's type when we first met.
Yes.
But what occurred to me is and by the way, the universe, if whoever believes in God, universe, spirit, if you believe that we have a divinity within us, I think what ended up happening. The universe was like, look, Jonathan, you've been at this for so long. Okay. You've been doing it a little bit, like you should just be shifting that ego piece. And like, here's the deal. I'm going to plop the perfect person in front of you. You've got to make the choice. Are you going to keep doing your old pattern? Or are you going to, adopt something new? Like, I'm going to give it to you, but this is like,
Yes.
now this is your chance. And why it feels unexpected is because in some ways she plopped in my life right at the perfect time of where I'm at in the evolution of my journey. And
Yeah.
she's more woo woo than I am. She's more evolved than I am. And I mean, not much, but I mean, just a little bit. Uh,
But that's
I
good
think we're
for
a
you.
good
I
match
like
for each
this for
other.
you.
But like I feel like the universe said, "Okay, knucklehead, I'm just going to give it to you, but you better accept it." It's like, it's that joke where you have the rowboat, the power boat, the helicopter, and then
Yep. Yep.
they say, "Look, I sent you all the signs," and I'm like, the helicopter got sent, and I decided to take the row, and you know what? I am so effing grateful for every experience that brought me to here.
Ooh,
And
yes.
I can't begin to express the importance of, look, I've lost a child. I lost my money in the market crash. I mean, if I went down the list of losses, I've got it piled up like
Right.
most people do. And yet I look at every experience as a stepping stone, but most importantly, I'm grateful for every experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, and I'm do my best to operate from that vantage point every day.
I mean, talk about a little mic drop ending there, sir.
Oh,
That
thank
was
you. I appreciate that.
that was so beautifully stated. And I feel like society has kind of taught us to fear midlife or not look forward to it anyway.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's so many blessings, and it's always fun to hear what people are thankful and grateful and mindful of. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and by the way, for everyone watching, I'm in the 60 category.
Okay.
I've had really great experiences, but I do, 60 is not a death sentence for, romantic love. And, the Golden Bachelor is kind of amplifying that in the Golden Bachelorette. But I'm here to say 60, we still got plenty of life in us. My dad lived to be 99, so I have potential for another 30 years
You've
in
got a
my
blueprint
years.
that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I'm 54 and my dad's still kicking at 84. My mom has
Yeah.
passed, but she didn't take care of herself. So like every day that, and I did this before she passed, but like I was very clear, like I wanted to have a different way with my health than my mother did because I saw
Yeah.
how she struggled and suffered and didn't help herself. So, those are lessons and blessings even when it's hard. So, yeah. Oh my gosh, what a pleasure, Jonathan. Thank you for being here.
Likewise.
Thank you for spending time in midlife with us today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm Lisa Steadman. This is Welcome to Midlife, the search for meaning in the middle. And we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.